Welcome, welcome. Oh my, there are a lot of participants. Thank you all for joining us today. We have some introductory remarks and some housekeeping as everyone continues to trickle in. So thank you so much for joining us for the second Monday session of the Connecticut Affordable Housing Conference. My name is Alicia Gardner. I am the Senior Policy Analyst with Partnership for Strong Communities. Our Executive Director, Chelsea Ross, is also on the call. So if anyone has any tech issues or needs some extra support, you can chat either myself or Chelsea on Zoom and we'll be sure to help you out. This year, the theme for CHC is Here for Housing. It's our opportunity to convene, to collaborate, and to drive meaningful change for improving access to housing affordability. So if you're on social, please join us at hashtag CAHC 2024, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you participate. This session is showcasing Connecticut's affordable housing development resources, and we have a great session lined up for you. But before we do that, we'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, and you'll actually get to hear from Terry from CHAFA later today. Our visionary sponsor, Wells Fargo. Our champion sponsors, Liberty Bank, the Connecticut Department of Housing, who you'll also get a chance to hear from, Cone Resnick, Trinity Financial, J. D'Amelia and Associates, and Robinson and Cole. And thank you also to our foundation sponsors. These sponsor support helps us make the conference, helps us make it free to attend, and really just goes to show the wide range of organizations in Connecticut that are interested in and supportive of affordable housing in any way they can. So we really appreciate this. Last but not least, a big thank you to our featured investors for this session, LISC Connecticut and the National Equity Fund. LISC was a huge, huge partner in putting together the Affordable Housing Development Resources tool as well. So thank you for sponsoring the session and also for making this session possible with their hard work on the tool. Lastly, this session is being recorded, as are all the other sessions in the conference. So please be note of that. We'll make all the recordings available as soon as possible. Please remain on mute unless a speaker asks you to unmute. At the end for the Q&A, you're welcome to drop it in the chat. We will have 10 minutes at the end of the session, and we'd appreciate you actually coming off mute and turning on your video so we can have more of an interactive conversation. Post-session, you can complete the session feedback survey by clicking on the megaphone icon in the lobby next to your profile picture on the upper right. We appreciate your feedback. And with that, we will get started. To begin, I'm going to start this session by taking a few minutes to introduce the partnership's Affordable Housing Development Resources tool. Over the past year, the partnership and LISC Connecticut have created a comprehensive map of state and federal resources available for housing development in Connecticut, particularly affordable housing, to make kind of a one-stop shop for filtering out the different housing construction, rehabilitation, and other development programs. Following our overview of the tool, we'll welcome our panel members from the state agencies who are primarily responsible for funding this housing development, many of whom were instrumental in supporting the development of the tool through interviews and fact-checking over the past year. And we'll hear from them directly about their affordable housing programs. Save your questions because we'll have 10 minutes at the end for an audience Q&A. So the Affordable Housing Development Resources tool currently includes 50 funding programs that have some relation to affordable housing development. The main fund administrators are the Department of Housing, the Connecticut Housing and Finance Authority, the Department of Economic and Community Development, the Office of Policy and Management, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and HUD, or the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So one federal partner in this tool right now. The tool includes primary information on some key metrics that you can filter by, and then detailed information for each program. The data was collected over a period of 6 months, which included survey outreach to mission-oriented developers on what would be useful to them in such a tool, and interviews with officials at each of the state agencies. followed by a lot of desk research as we've looked through all the public programs and their documents. The tool was launched on August 1st, 2024, so just a few months ago. I'm going to go to the tool now and show you around. All right, so here's the Affordable Housing Development Resources tool. Before I go into the tool itself, I just want to let you know we have a feedback form. So you can give us feedback on it as members of the public who may use the tool or work with the programs in the tool. And if you notice any incorrect information, please reach out to us at info@pschousing.org. It is a live tool. We are updating it, and we can't catch everything. So if you have updated information, please let us know. So the tool works where there are a list of programs sorted A to Z. You can go through. But you can also search for specific programs. So you can search by a keyword if you have an idea of what it's called, but might not know the whole thing. You can search by program status. So you might want to learn about maybe some of the newer programs that were launched in the most recent biennium that are still in development. You can search by type of funds if you're interested in rebates or in tax credits, grants, loans. You can search by fund administrators. So there's a whole list of the different administrators of the funds. You can search by eligible applicants. So if you're a housing authority and you want to know what programs you can apply for, there's quite a few of them. So you can search specifically by that. Yep. And then you can also search by program type over here. So if you're looking for pre-development funding, if you're looking for preservation of existing affordable housing or anything else, you can click the program type here and learn more. So I'd like to give you a chance to look at one specific program. Oh, that's not going to get me what I want. Brownfield. So let's look at the Brownfield Municipal Grant Program. So all the topics highlighted in orange here are filterable metrics. So the fund administrator for this program is the Department of Economic and Community Development, and it's an active program. We go through and have a description of the program. You learn it's a remediation and it's a grant. Where available, we'll put information on the funding amounts or limits so developers can start to do some financial planning around, if we do get this grant, what can we expect for the type of project we have? If there's a target population, whether it's AMI or supportive housing for individuals with disabilities, you can learn about it here. There's links to additional resources, so we can send you directly to the agency's website and all of their documentation on it. You can learn about who are the eligible applicants. Are there any requirements around the project size? Does it have to be a certain number of units? And see, this one is because it's brownfield, it doesn't have target populations or size. And any other eligibility guidelines. So this one, you have to meet the state's definition of brownfields. We have information on the application. So application timeline for this program, there are 2 cycles annually, and the awards are announced 2 to 3 months after closing. And then a brief overview of the application process, which again can help for long-term planning. And we also include any additional information. This may be links. This may just be notes. So this one is that the office that runs this program encourages public-private partnerships. So this is helpful information to know as you're developing your grant application. So all 50 of these programs have as much information for all of those metrics completed as we possibly can. And we just really want this to be a helpful resource for developers, for advocates, for municipal officials, for anyone who really is interested in housing development. All right, so let's stop sharing, get back to the slides. All right, so just to give you a quick overview of Connecticut's housing development landscape that we have learned throughout our data collection process, here's a breakdown of the percentage going to the different program administrators. There are many different agencies operating in this space, and this is one of the reasons that we wanted to develop this tool in the first place. Roughly 50% of all the programs included are administered by traditional housing agencies like DOH, CHAFA, and HUD, but that also means that 50% are operated by agencies that people may not traditionally think of, especially DEEP, DCD, OPM, and some third-party administrators. As a matter of fact, DEEP actually had the third highest number of programs in our database, which is clearly an untapped resource by many prospective developers or multifamily housing owners. Please note that the statistics are related to the number of programs in the database and not necessarily the dollar amount for each program. So you probably should be going to DOH and CHAFA if you're looking for housing construction grants, but there are many other programs available to learn about. Some of the third-party program ministers are the utility companies that do rebates and kind of partner with DEEP to get some of this money, state and federal, out the door. And there's also a children's hospital that's running a lead abatement program. Many HUD-funded programs are administered by the state, but there are also many programs that you can apply to HUD directly for funding. And that's what that 14% represents, are programs that a developer or municipality would apply directly to the federal government, not the state. We also pulled some stats on the eligible applicants. So there are a wide range of applicants for these funding pots, and the programs in the state target a wide range of actors. Surprisingly, at least to me, municipalities are the most represented in our data set. This means that municipalities who may not actually know about these programs could be more proactive about applying for state support for affordable housing construction. Local developers, either for-profit or nonprofit, can also partner with their local municipalities to ask them to apply for funds if they have a specific project in mind. In addition to ones that generally target developers and nonprofit organizations, there are also programs that specifically target housing authorities, brownfield land banks, tribal communities, CDFIs, the regional COGs, and also community housing development organizations. Finally, our website metrics showed us the most viewed programs since the tool launched in August, which I think is pretty cool. So these include DOH's Affordable Housing Program, or FLEX, DCD's Community Investment Fund, OPM's Urban Act bond funding, which is federal money that's managed by OPM, DOH's Housing Trust Fund, and HUD's Community Project Funding, or Congressionally Directed Spending. So this is pretty interesting. These are all some of the larger, more flagship programs. One takeaway that I find fascinating is that of the top 5 programs, there are 4 different administrators represented: DOH, DCD, OPM, and HUD. And this really highlights how widespread the housing programs are across state government, that people are looking for programs from many, many different agencies. It's also interesting to me that DEEP doesn't show up on this list, especially given the number of programs are in the data set, which is a teaching moment that there's some work to do to bring together developers and DEEP and help, especially developers who are newer to the landscape and might not be aware of as many programs. And lastly, there's huge interest in the Community Investment Fund, which is kind of just getting off the ground and just got a new influx of bond funding. So there's a lot of eyes on this program as it develops. So thank you for going through with me this introduction to the tool and the affordable housing landscape. We are going to spend the rest of our time talking to our panelists. So I'm going to turn the time over to Miguel Rivera from the Department of Housing to just briefly introduce himself. And then each of the panelists can introduce themselves before I begin working through some of our questions.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Can everyone hear me okay?
Sound good.
Oh, good, good. Thank you. I know we've had some technical difficulties. My name is Miguel Rivera, and many people say that I look like Antonio Banderas from the nose down. So I hope it made you laugh. That's one thing that we need to do more often every day to lift our spirits. If you don't know what I'm referencing, please look at my profile. I work in the Department of Housing under the Housing and Community Development divisions. I collaborate very much with my next colleague, who I'll pass the baton over to, Terry Nash Giovannucci.
Thanks, Miguel. I'm Terry Nash Giovanucci. I've been with CHFA for many, many years in many different roles. Currently, I'm a senior manager, and my roles involve uh, partnerships and special programs, um, working very closely with other state agencies and seeing how we can bridge gaps and bring us all together to make life a little easier for our developer partners. But I'm very happy to be here, Alicia. Thank you. Why don't I introduce Claire?
Thank you, Terry. My name is Claire Sickinger. I work for the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and I'm heading our Solar for All initiative, which I'm sure we'll get to talk more about later. I'm working with Terry at CHFA on that, as well as the Connecticut Green Bank, and I will pass it to my colleague Zoemma.
Hello, my name is Zoemma Warshofsky. I'm an associate research analyst at DEEP in our Office of Affordable Housing Energy Retrofits. I'm leading our efforts for the Inflation Reduction Act rebate programs, among other affordable housing and energy programs. And I'll pass it over to Katie.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Shelton. I serve as a senior manager of market engagement for the Connecticut Green Bank, which is a quasi-state agency here in Connecticut. And I specifically work for a segment of the Green Bank called the Solar MAP program, which stands for Marketplace Assistance Program. Alicia, I'm not sure who's next, so I'll turn it back to you.
I think Melinda is our final panelist.
It's nice to meet everyone. I very much appreciate my state partners in the room. We collaborate behind the scenes often on making these great projects happen. Affordable housing is obviously a priority for the state and for all of us. I work on these through my directorship of the Community Development Department at DECD, and also I'm the director of the Community Investment Fund, which supports many of these units of housing in one way or another. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for joining. I mean, particularly, we're just really pleased to have you at the conference, but more importantly, all of the work that you are doing behind the scenes day in and day out to help build affordable housing in the state. As we all heard in the keynote, there is a huge need for especially deeply affordable housing. On that note, I'd like to just do a round robin where everyone can go around and either tell me what your agency's flagship program is that people apply to, particularly for deeply affordable housing construction and renovation, and what is your most underutilized program that you wish more people knew about?
Hi. I'd like to speak about the Community Development Block Grant Small Cities Program. It's an entitlement program through HUD. We average about $13 million a year. It's only eligible for communities under the population size of 50,000 residents. The program can be diverse in the sense that it can do a lot, but we do have priorities based on responses that we've gotten through surveys in collaboration with the municipalities, legislators, as well as the housing authorities. And one of the greatest needs when I came in 2018 was to support the existing state housing portfolio. So I guess I like to think of myself as a champion for the state housing portfolio in being able to leverage those federal resources in partnership with state bond dollars with our colleagues over at CHAFA with the state-sponsored housing portfolio funding. Terry, would you like to talk about that, or would you like me to? I could keep going on
No,
other.
that's a great program and certainly a portfolio that really needs those resources. So we're happy to be participating with DOH and rolling out those funds. I would say on CHAFA's side, the most, or the the product that we're most known for probably is the low-income housing tax credit. We are the administrators of that federal program. And I know my colleague, Debbie Alter, is in as a participant, but she is the senior program officer that manages that program. The 9% is highly competitive and it's announced once a year. And the 4% is not competitive right now. It's tied to tax exempt bonds and is essentially available as needed. Most folks come through the developer engagement process, which is another collaboration that CHAFA enjoys with DOH. And they'll come in, they'll have their ask, we'll make conversations with them. We're especially proud of that DEP program because it's a process that just sort of streamlined the way developers approached applying for housing. So you make one preliminary application, super simple, and then engage with all the partners that might have a stake in it. So low-income housing tax credit, number one, and probably one of the little-known programs is our Affordable Housing Fund. Folks know about the Opportunity Fund, and our Affordable Housing Fund is basically supported by a grant from the Capital Magnet Fund program of the U.S. Treasury's Community Development Financial Institution Fund. And then CHAFA matches the grant amount to capitalize an Affordable Housing Fund. And those dollars will support deep income targeting, particularly in areas of economic distress. So it could be high opportunity areas, but the focus is generally building and improving communities and housing opportunities for the deepest income targeting that we can.
Thanks.
Lots of special programs we're working on. So I'll send, that gives me a good segue to send to Claire to talk perhaps about Solar for All or other things that she's doing.
Sure. Well, I can talk about Solar for All, but I think I'll actually have Zoema start, talk about some of our programs that are already available to folks, and then we can talk about Solar for All when we get to programs that are kind of up and coming. Thanks, Terry.
So DEEP's kind of two biggest programs, they're our Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy Office that we oversee, our WAP, the Weatherization Assistance Program, and then the Conservation and Load Management programs that are administered by Eversource and UI. So I'll start with WAP. So the Weatherization Assistance Program has historically been focused on single family and 1 to 4 units. But we are either just about to launch or have launched, I forget exactly where it stands, but we are opening it up soon to large multifamily. So that will be really exciting. Weatherization helps hopefully reduce tenant energy bills through air sealing, insulation, and other measures to help reduce energy bills and make buildings more energy efficient. And then on the utility side, there's similar programs for 1 to 4 unit buildings. Those can go through the HESIE, Home Energy Solutions Income Eligible Program. And for larger multifamily, there's the Multifamily Initiative, which also provides incentives for weatherization and energy efficiency measures. And then upcoming programs will be the IRA rebate programs that will provide additional incentives for electrification and energy efficiency, but those have not launched yet. We're still in the process of applying to DOE for those funds. Claire, you wanna?
I can give a quick overview of Solar for All. This is a new program. It's not quite available yet, but it is funded by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it will support the deployment of solar and energy storage technologies in what EPA refers to as low income and disadvantaged communities. So we're really focusing on multifamily affordable housing, and like I mentioned, working closely with the Green Bank and CHAFA, as well as DECD and DOH. So it's really like a group effort, and we're really excited about that program, which we will definitely be doing some more stakeholder engagement on. So we'd love to hear from folks on this call, and then hopefully that'll be available sometime next year.
I'll jump in following Claire. The Connecticut Green Bank is one of the sub-awardees of the Solar for All competition, as well as another category under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund competition. So we're all really excited about that. The program that the Green Bank offers is through our Solar Marketplace Assistance Program. For anybody who's not familiar, there has been a recent shift here at the state level for the incentive program for solar on affordable multifamily housing in the state. So instead of participating in the commercial incentive program, it's now shifted over to the Residential Renewable Energy Solutions Program, or RES. In doing so, the Green Bank really wants to focus on accelerating solar and storage deployment for affordable multifamily housing in the state. So we've expanded our Marketplace Assistance Program to provide no-cost technical assistance and project development support for solar and storage on affordable multifamily housing in the state. We have two products that ultimately we're offering through that program. One is a lease option, where there's no cost to develop an on-site solar and storage project. We are fronting the capital to complete those installations and then simply sharing in the revenue that's generated by the project with the site owner as well as the residents of the facility. And we do also have a traditional loan option if owning a system is of interest to a site owner. If they're able to ultimately monetize the tax benefits, it typically makes sense. Pass it along to Melinda.
Thank you, Katie. I would discuss the Community Investment Fund 2030. As Alicia noted earlier, that is the second most inquired project through the tracker. And Community Investment Fund is unique in that it is eligible. Applicants are municipalities and nonprofit organizations, as we previously discussed, and 55 of Connecticut's public investment communities or Alliance District school municipalities. The nonprofit partners must operate in those communities, so there's a little bit of a limited access there. CIF is mission driven to help the underserved, and therefore, affordable housing fits right in. To date, with the first 5 rounds of Community Investment Fund, the fund has supported almost 3,900 housing units. Within those affordable housing units of over 2,800. Supportive units, which, as you know, are your deeply supplemented 204 units. There is another uniqueness about the Community Investment Fund as far as who is eligible is the DECD best practices for the Community Investment Fund would be indicative of 20% of units being at 80% AMI. And 10% or 10% at 60% AMI. And therefore, we have different, we can support housing and affordable housing through those sorts of policies.
Thank you all for sharing these programs. I'm really excited for us to be able to, hear more about them. And if you've been watching the chat, Chelsea has actually been dropping links to each of these programs that were mentioned. So if one of them kind of caught your attention, feel free to click on the links or save the links to go through. You all mentioned a lot of kind of informal collaboration. So my next question kind of builds on that. Could you tell me more about your efforts to work together or coordinate across state agencies? Are there things that are formal? Are there things that are informal? And I see Miguel, you're raising your hand, but just kind of jump in and talk about those efforts.
Certainly. With our colleagues at CHAFA, as it surrounds the tax credit, so the 9% low-income housing tax credit, along with the 4% low-income housing tax credits, those applications, we collaborate. Oh my goodness, almost on a daily basis. But a formal basis is that we do have a CHAFA DOH pipeline that we review twice a month. It's not bi-weekly because it changes, but we do an in-person once a month and then a virtual call. So we're trying to always look at the communications flowing correctly. Sometimes development teams will call one but not the other, and they try to play against us, which is kind of cute because it's like all I do is pick up the phone and or schedule a meeting and we talk with each other. A lot of people are surprised by that. But at the same time, we also work with their asset managers. We work with their architectural technical services on specific projects and troubleshooting and best practices. We also do that with our colleagues at DEEP, especially our colleagues who are in the flood management. There's been changes to flood management practices and procedures on the federal level that impact the state. We also work with OPM with regards to the Connecticut Environmental Protection Agency on a quarterly basis and troubleshoot best practices, lessons learned. And most recently, we've really formalized our relationship with Melinda and her team over at DECDSIF. And we actually talk to them too quite often. And we have standing check-in meetings to look at our collaborative overlapping projects. So that's the big thing that I've seen in the last 6 years is the amount of conversation that DOH is engaged with and has expanded. So we look at shared training materials, opportunities. We brainstorm on projects to try to make the best recommendations. We're not looking to get to a no right away, but it is important to get to a no. I'd say that. So one thing that we've done is we've eased away from a lot of the competitive rounds over at DOH. So we utilize a development engagement step, which is I like to call an online questionnaire. We get everything from I'd like to do a tax credit. I have everything ready to go. It's shovel ready to, I have this great idea. If you give me the money, I will build it. So we offer that twice a year. We're getting very formal as to the rounds, a spring and a fall, to collaborate with the SIF program, brownfields programs, the tax credit application rounds. And there's very little cost to that. The conversation is the essential piece, is that we try to have a conversation with everyone to to provide feedback before large levels of investments are being made.
And if I can tee up what Miguel has said, so we're at the point where we're trying to keep ourselves to weekly meetings, although I will say that Miguel and I seem to talk most every day. We have a new meeting with DEEP that I'm able to join every week. The biggest way I think that Community Investment Fund has changed a little bit of this communication landscape and working together in an interagency way is the amount and volume and demand for Community Investment Fund. There are hundreds of applications, and we are able to pursue those, review those applications and send those that may have an overlap with DEEP over to DEEP for review during the review period, before any of these applications are approved or, not recommended for funding at this time, as we say. And Miguel and his team weigh in, DEEP weighs in, we have, DOT, we go, throughout all agencies. OPM is weighing in on all of these applications ahead of time, so that the best forms of funding, where these projects may have better matches than Community Investment Fund, we're able to identify those because we're all working together prior to, as Miguel said, prior to investment.
You know, I actually am just gonna follow up on that really quick. And this was not a question that I sent ahead of time, but just as we're talking, you're saying that sometimes there are cases where you're not able to move ahead with funding. Have you, Melinda, Miguel, Terry, Zoema, Claire, Katie, have you seen that the constraints on these programs generally tend to lean more towards lack of project ready projects, like projects that are can just give you the green light to go ahead, or is the constraint a lack of funding? Like what's the bigger constraint that you're encountering with these programs?
Melinda, you or
Well,
Terry, you would like to go
I'll just
first?
make one comment on that is, we Community Investment Fund, as it's been evolving over the first, now 6 rounds, we've actually had more of a focus on planning, there's a special planning application through the Community Investment Fund, basically to become more shovel ready with a capital eligible project. Because we saw, to Alicia's point, shovel readiness was an issue.
Terry?
Yeah, I do agree with Melinda. We see all different types of phases of developments, right? They come in very, very early and they're nowhere near ready. So it doesn't benefit anyone to commit funds to a development that's not going to be built in, not even going to be ready to submit an application for a year. So we tend to say it's the readiness that is the impediment. And we look to support that developer or the applicant in building what they need to come forward again. So they didn't do it, they weren't recommended in the fall, they might come again in the spring, they might wait till the following fall until they have all their ducks in a row.
And I would just say that we just recently had a small to mid-sized private developer who's working with a nonprofit who had expressed interest in learning about grants and other, low interest loan or the financial tools. But what they were looking for, they were looking to try to look at 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, purchasing properties and then rehabbing them and making them available to the nonprofit. Great partnership, but some challenges. For example, what they were looking to do is almost like get a line of credit saying, hey, approve me for this much, then I'll go out and buy the properties, which is hard for us to say, well, we don't know what you'll need. So, we wanted to make sure it guided them to resources as to, what are our construction standards for rehabilitation, what resources are available currently that they can maybe access a lot quicker, like the Children's Medical Center in partnership with public health, with a $15 million ARPA allocation to address lead paint across the state. That interests them a lot because that $30,000 to $50,000 per unit could make them make more units available to the nonprofit. The slippery slope there, though, is they may be purchasing properties that are already occupied and not knowing who those individuals live in the property. We had to explain that, there are things that are by law, both state and or federal, such things such as relocation. You can't just buy a property and say, well, we want the property empty. So educating folks, making sure that they have access to, where's our friends from LISC? I didn't see them, but they may be here. They have the Housing Institute that is a collaboration with the state and CHAFA that's funding. That's a great way to get staff professional development. The department also it will be providing next year, soon to come, information about Grow America and their rental financing development certification program. We're in the initial conversations of hopefully having a place-based training so that people can come together in person now that obviously COVID safety, but now that we've put some distance from the COVID crisis. but that's really a lot of the development engagement becomes about education, making people informed. It's not just writing a check like, hey, that's a great idea. Here you go. Informing them, unfortunately, of the bureaucracy.
No, and that's a good point because a lot of people
I guess
want
I'm
to
on a
do
Zoom, but
the smaller
you're set up
2 and 3
in
family
your
homes.
corner. Yeah. Make sure that your
We
urinal. I think there's just
we
have one
encourage
phone
them
number
to
if you
come
think. Yeah.
through
And they'll be starting on
the
the.
small multifamily loan pool through a local CDFI because that's a way that they're able to build 2 to 20 units of housing, generally in an urban setting. Generally, it's an abandoned, blighted, uninhabitable building, and turn it around and improve the neighborhood, improve the community. And it's a lot of TA that comes with the CDFI's funding. So it helps to build their experience and their knowledge and then their capacity to do more. Chaffa funds the small multifamily loan pool, and we're very proud of the results we've had with that simply because the unit price is something like less than $50,000 a unit, and yet it makes a marked difference on the neighborhood and on the community. I think we've done about 397 units in the Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven, East Hartford areas, although it could be statewide. So we're looking to expand that.
Thank
Something
you.
else, I just wanted to mention one other thing because there's a question in the chat. Do you need a developer's license to apply and build properties? And I wanted to say more that not necessarily license, but learning, right? It's a learning experience, and to start small and build up or go through the training opportunities that come often through LISC or the partnership or DOH, and dip your toe in the water with something small and then grow your capacity and grow your portfolio.
Thank you.
If I can add one comment.
Yes, real quick. We have a lot of participants, so if you have been thinking about Q&A, I'm actually going to reframe and ask you to drop it in the chat instead of just come off mute. But yes, Melinda, can you go ahead?
I just wanted to add quickly that as far as the part of your question that referred to capital stack, if there's not enough funding for some of these projects, that's where Community Investment Fund has become very useful, is filling in that final gap in the pro formas.
Thank you. So we're still waiting for some questions. Maybe we won't have many this session, but I do just want to take the next couple of minutes to come back to our colleagues at DEEP and CT Investment Bank and also DCD. How do you see affordable housing construction and development and renovation contributing to your agency's overall mission? Because while many developers who are in the know will probably be able to go to you, a lot of mission oriented or small or newer developers on the scene wouldn't necessarily think about this. So if you want to just talk a bit about how it connects to your overall mission and how you're connecting with these types of developers.
You had asked Alicia earlier about something that's underutilized. So I'll kind of frame it with that context. Because a lot of the work that I do deals with the small cities, non-urban areas, and with that hat on, we miss opportunities to work with USDA and their multifamily programs for renovation and creation of affordable housing. We were fortunate enough to re-engage with the USDA directors, and we are actually working with the Access Agency on a project in Brooklyn, Connecticut, where they are utilizing USDA financing to acquire, and we're coming in with some rehabilitation dollars to help update and preserve the 96 units. So that's definitely something that I have not seen too much of in the last 6 years. But it's another tool in the toolbox, I'll say.
I'll jump in next with the Connecticut Green Bank. Our goal is to expand access to renewable energy throughout the state of Connecticut. And we do have a specific focus on equity investing. So this directly aligns with our goal in expanding access to vulnerable communities throughout Connecticut by developing a program that helps assist with project development for solar and storage for multifamily affordable housing. Claire, I saw you come off mute. Did you want to go next?
I just saw Zoema come off mute. But I can just quickly say at DEEP, we are striving for clean, affordable, and reliable energy for everyone. And I think working with affordable housing agencies and other communities that or stakeholders that maybe haven't been prioritized historically is going to help address those gaps that we've seen before and grant more access to cleaner, healthier communities throughout Connecticut. So Emma, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, and because of DEEP's goals for that, we have an Office of Affordable Housing Energy Retrofits, which is really exciting. So my office focuses exclusively on affordable housing and how to provide energy efficiency benefits to low income and affordable housing. And it's really great to be part of that effort and to focus our programs on those that need it most.
Thank you. All right. We are running up against the edge, but I did just want to slide in one more question. And I think this one's directed to Katie, but could the presenters provide a little more info on IRA funds, who it is administering, and when the funds might be available? Or maybe it's not. Katie.
Claire, did you want to take solar for all?
Sure, I can talk about Solar for All that is funded by the Inflation Reduction Act, and then I'll let Zoema talk about the rebates. So DEEP is the awardee from EPA. We will be subgranting a lot of the funding to the Green Bank and to the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. So they're the ones that basically that you will end up applying through. But DEEP will be administering the technical assistance part of Solar for All, which we didn't get a chance to talk about. But those are things, that's something that we'll be looking for more feedback on in terms of what kind of technical assistance might be helpful to folks, developers, municipalities that are looking to increase access to solar in their communities. So and we're really hoping to have that funding available next year. Zoema, do you want to quickly talk about the rebates?
Sure. So DEEP is the awardee, like Claire said, but for the IRA rebate programs, there's two separate programs, the home efficiency rebates and the home electrification and appliance rebate programs. DEEP is in the process of applying for funding for both to DOE, and we hope to launch both of those programs next year sometime. And most of the funding will be flowing through the utilities, Eversource and Avangrid, because we're going to be running those programs through existing energy efficiency programs, so the SIE program and the multifamily initiative program, since those are existing ones, and those should be able to more efficiently implement new programs.
Thank you. And I see Claire dropped in the chat. If you have any further questions about opportunities available through the Inflation Reduction Act, you can email deep.energybureau@ct.gov. We have come to the end of our session. So for the questions that we weren't able to answer, I will circle back around to the panelists and send the questions to them directly. Thank you so much for all of your time, for all of your work, and we're really grateful and lucky to have you here in the state building out our affordable housing development. Thank you so much.